Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader Warrior Guide. Vanguard Warrior Archetype Guide. Let's go!
Are you ready for Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader? Because I am. The Emperor protects.
It's time that we check Vanguard, classic tank counter. The Vanguard main feature is unyielding beacon. The more you get whacked, the tankier you are and your companions are safer. You are there to soak up damage. That's the passive. You're stacking up those hits and then you do different things with your abilities that we're gonna cover very soon. That's the key feature of the Vanguard. Classic protector. The ultimate for the Vanguard is an unyielding guard. I explained what yellow is and what red is. Red is you're losing the fight and you can use ulti with penalties. Yellow is you're winning the fight and you're gonna wipe everyone out on the map. That's how it works. Now, this is extremely good question of what I tested all, and it's extremely good question of what heroic is better. Is it unyielding guard, where you can taunt all enemies around you and then you retaliate damage non-stop on everyone that hits you, or is it a daring breach from the warrior class that's gonna become a vanguard? Because in my personal opinion, again, daring breach is one of the best ultis in the game, even better than unyielding guard. So it's situational. If you believe that unyielding guard will save your allies, if you believe there's a lot of small enemies around, you taunt them all and then you use unyielding and wait for retaliation, then you're gonna use it. That's the ultimate for the Vanguard. It's not that good, impressive like Dispatch on Assassin or like Daring Breach, but it still can be useful in combat. But ulti is not the reason why we're gonna play Vanguard. It's everything else but ulti. By everything else, I mean active abilities of Vanguard that are absolutely brilliant and you don't know which one is better. Let's cover them up. You go in the middle of enemies, you trigger defensive stance, you parry like crazy, you retaliate, you use attacks of opportunity, you are like a boulder, soaking up damage and waking enemies. Absolutely great active spell for a Vanguard defensive stance. The next would be Wall of Rockreed. The Vanguard and all allies in a 3-cell radius around them will gain number of unyielding beacon stacks. This is unyielding beacon. The more you get hit, the stronger you are, yeah. And how many stacks you got, that's the temporary wounds that you're gonna receive. Okay, in a 3-cell radius, so if allies are standing close to the Vanguard, they gain temporary health. Not bad, but I believe other classes do it better as far as temporary wounds go than the Vanguard. Again, defensive stance is better than Wall of Rockreed. When is Wall of Rockreed actually useful? It's not that much because of wounds, it's useful because allies receive less damage. So if there is a fight with enemies that have huge AoE damage and they're gonna fire up first and you know what's gonna happen, then it's a good thing to cast this one, then trigger the fight. Okay, so you receive 50% less damage from area of effect attacks. That's when it can be solid. The next active spell, active skill, call it however you like, would be Bulwark. Until the start of the next turn, the Vanguard gains damage deflection against ranged attacks equal to the number of stacks of unyielding beacon on the Vanguard. Additionally, the Vanguard becomes immune to push and force movement effects until their next turn. If there are more ranged enemies in combat, you're gonna use Bulwark as a pre-buff. If there are more melee enemies in the combat, you're gonna use defensive stance. So this is how you switch between defensive stance and Bulwark. You need them both on a Vanguard. Which one is better? Definitely melee, because melees hurt more than ranged in the game. But again, you need them both, Bulwark and defensive, against ranged, against melee. The next one would be Disposal. The Vanguard forces an enemy in their melee range to immediately attack the Vanguard. All of the Vanguard's allies who are wielding melee weapons and are close to the enemy make attack of opportunity against them. The enemy suffers fellowship damage from these attacks of opportunity and has reduced parry and dodge. Hard to trigger Disposal, you need a specific team. Your main needs to be mega strong, then you need Heinrichs, then you need Abelard, then you need the Space Wolf, and then you need to surround the enemy, and then you whack him with Disposal. And you whack him with Disposal, all of those three, Heinrichs, Abelard, and I think his name is Ulfar. Doesn't matter. Space Wolf, all of them will use their melee attacks against that enemy and burst the living shit out of him. So you need to know how to play the game to actually use Disposal in the right way. You need the right team composition. Good one, but be careful. The next one would be Forced Distraction. The Vanguard chooses an ally. All enemies in a 3-cell radius around this ally must make a willpower test with a -5 multiply Vanguard's fellowship bonus penalty. On a failed test, the Vanguard becomes their priority target. Regardless of the willpower test results, the ally does not provoke attacks of opportunity from the enemies, can shoot enemies in melee, and move as if not in range of attacks of opportunity. How does it work? To make it short, you use Force Distraction, click on an ally, okay? And all enemies that are around your ally will now transfer to Vanguard to hit him. And your ally can extract to a safer spot and whack enemies. That's how the spell works. It's useful, I used it, it saved my ass a lot of times. I would say it's third most important ability. After Defensive Stance and Bulwark comes Forced Distraction on a Vanguard. And the last one would be Follow My Lead. Until the start of the next turn, the Vanguard will gain 10+2 multiplied fellowship bonus damage and 10+2 multiplied percentage armor penetration against enemies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard. Additionally, when the ability is cast, all allies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard gain the following ability until the start of the Vanguard's next turn. Following, the character can move to any cell close to the Vanguard without provoking attacks of opportunity. If you plan to play on unfair, if you plan to challenge yourself, if you know what you're doing, you mega know what you're doing. Even I'm afraid of taking Follow My Lead, okay? Because you really need to test this thing out and to know exactly how it works and how to position, and then you can profit out of it. Ignore if you're gonna play on easier difficulties or if you're a newcomer or something like that, just ignore it. Doesn't exist. Follow My Lead. It doesn't exist. I told you what's good. Defensive Stance, Bulwark, Force Distraction, Wall of Rockrit in that order, Disposal. Ignore Follow My Lead. That's about it for the Vanguard as far as active abilities go. Now, Vanguard also receives his own personal talents. A full bunch of them. Talents still remain for Warrior, Vanguard, and Exemplar. But for the Vanguard only, Talents 1 now apply. Let's check all of the talents. The first talent would be Taunting Opportunity. When you hit an enemy, you taunt them. That's how it works. You need it. It's a must. It's the most important talent that you can take on a Vanguard. And you're gonna protect your allies like that as well. The next one would be Taunting Defense. All taunts, as I said, on the Vanguard. The Vanguard gains toughness to parry against enemies that consider Vanguard a priority target. Extremely important, as well as Taunting Opportunity. They merged extremely well together. You should take Taunting Opportunities first and then Taunting Defense as the second talent. The next talent would be Renitent Beacon. Each stack of Unyielding Beacon additionally increases armor and parry by 1%. Unyielding Beacon is the main keystone feature of the Vanguard, and yes, Renitent Beacon is extremely important, but it's not important on level 16 when you gain Vanguard. It's not even important on level 25. This is like for level 30 and above. Okay, when you're actually gonna have a lot of benefits out of Renitent Beacon, so don't take it early on, but it's good. The next one would be Formidable Distraction. All enemies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard suffer -5 plus fellowship bonus percentage penalty to dodge against all attacks except the Vanguard's. If any of these enemies consider the Vanguard a priority target, those enemies will suffer 5 plus 2 multiplied fellowship bonus percentage penalty to dodge instead. To put it short, it's a good talent, your allies have better chance of hitting enemies, and Vanguard has double the better chance to hit enemies. That's about it. That's the explanation of the talent. Resilient Beacon. Critical hits deal less damage to Vanguard. Scales with his toughness. You have huge toughness on a Warrior Vanguard, and yes, Resilient Beacon is absolutely crazy good on a Vanguard. Nothing else to say about it. The next one would be Enduring Shield. While the Vanguard has at least one temporary wound, they gain toughness, percentage parry, and armor. Great for harder difficulties. You do not need it on easier difficulties because you won't get injured. But if you plan to play on hard or unfair, you're gonna get injured as a Vanguard quite often because you're gonna soak up all of the damage for the entire team. And then Enduring Shield will help you out because you get stronger the more injuries you got. There is something that's called injuries in a game and traumas, which I'll explain in the ultimate guide as well and how it works. All in all, ignore this if you're a newcomer. Enduring Shield. The last one would be Selfless Resilience, the less recommended one. Allies affected by any of the Vanguard's abilities will gain Vanguard's Fellowship bonus percentage to armor for a round. It does not stack. If you plan to play with companions like Abelard, Space Wolf, and Heinrichs, then this is a great talent because they gonna prep it and they gonna be bulky and tanky. Okay, if you plan to play as a Vanguard with squishy teammates, you do not need Selfless Resilience. That's how it is. And now we switch to unrecommended talents. There's a lot of good ones here as well. Words of Endurance is the first one. Whenever the Vanguard ally in a 2-cell radius around them is hit, the Vanguard grants the ally Fellowship temporary wounds once per round for each ally. I would not recommend this, to be honest. Ignore the talent. The next one would be Punish the Imprudent. Once per round, whenever an enemy that considers Vanguard a priority target, and a lot of enemies are considering Vanguard a priority target, enters a cell close to the Vanguard, the enemy provokes an attack of opportunity. Absolutely crazy freaking good. That's all I gotta say about it. And I don't know why it's not recommended, it's crazy good on a Vanguard. The next one would be Counter Attack Stance. Defensive Stance now has a -10 penalty to weapon skill for attacks of opportunity granted by this ability instead of -20. These attacks of opportunity deal additional plus toughness damage. A must. You're gonna use Defensive Stance like crazy. As I said, Defensive Stance against melees, Bulwark ability against ranged. Everything that buffs Defensive Stance is good. This is a huge buff on Defensive Stance, and you're gonna be in a Defensive Stance for the entire game. Talent is great. The next one would be, imagine, Bulwark now. After Defensive Stance, while Bulwark is active, the Vanguard counts as full cover for their allies and grants the ejected allies stacks of unyielding beacon damage deflection against ranged attacks. How does it work? You have a lot of ranged enemies around you, and your squishes are in danger. You trigger Bulwark active spell, and then you put your squishy behind Vanguard. And then when they start shooting on your squishy, they either gonna hit Vanguard, or your squishy will receive less damage. It's a great freaking talent. The next talent would be On Your Feet. The next attack made by an ally under the effect of Force Distraction additionally grants 3 movement points to that ally. I would say it's good, but you need to know what you're doing. I told you what Distraction ability does and how you can extract ally from danger and trigger those enemies to hit your Vanguard. Okay, this one gives more movement points. You can play without, to be honest, it's only 3 movement points after all. The next talent would be Overwhelming Disposal. If the target of disposal is hit by at least one attack of opportunity caused by disposal, The target gains +1 stack of fatigued until the end of combat. When someone is fatigued, they suffer -10 penalty to strength, toughness, agility for each stack of fatigue. Movement points are reduced by 1 for each stack. In other words, disposal is for a specific team, for Heinrich, for the Space Wolf, and for Abelard. You surround an enemy, use disposal, and now your disposal is gonna be even crazier than it used to be. Again, be careful what teammates you play with. If you play with more melees, more bulkier team, then you wanna go with overwhelming disposal as your talent for the Vanguard. The Wall of Ferocrete. Wall of Ferocrete now grants toughness temporary wounds to all allies. I said how it works with Archetype. Okay, you trigger that, you push allies into those 3 cells, they become tankier, harder to hit and so on and whatnot, and now they're gonna receive extra health. That's what wounds is, extra health on top of it all. Where does the talent stand on the list? I would say somewhere in the middle. If you really don't have anything else to upgrade, then you can opt in for Ferocrete. The next one would be Offensive Follow. Whenever an ally uses following, I told you to ignore it. That ally will gain Vanguard's Fellowship bonus percentage more damage against all enemies in a 2-cell radius around the Vanguard for a 1 turn. Nah. Ignore this talent as well as the ability that gives following. The Unyielding Resolve. While at maximum stacks of Unyielding Beacon, the Vanguard gains +7 Resolve. To be more precise, the more you get hit, the better the benefit out of this talent. Yes, it's very good. Very, very good. And I would say go for it. The next one would be Beacon of Might. At the start of Vanguard's turn, before their temporary wounds are lost, the Vanguard gains plus number of temporary wounds strength for 1 round. Good on level 30 and above. Not good from level 1 to level 30. Okay, that's how it is with this talent. The next talent would be Don't Worry About Me. Whenever an attack made by an ally hits the Vanguard, you don't wanna do that, man. You just care where you shoot, I guess. Move, position, do not shoot your Vanguard to hit an enemy and risk. Don't do it when you play position. And that's when this talent becomes a waste. And now if you're gonna play like a maniac, then you need this talent. But don't do it. And do not take this talent. Don't even wanna read. The next one would be Defensive Comrade. While the Vanguard has at least 1 ally in a 2-cell radius, Vanguard will gain toughness bonus to parry. Very good if you wanna play with a Vanguard and you got Abelard close by and you got Space Wolf and you got Heinrich. Defensive Comrade is great. Very good talent. And now we got Protective Word. All allies affected by Vanguard's abilities, but not the Vanguard themselves, are 5+ Vanguard's Fellowship bonus percentage less likely to suffer a critical hit. Good on a Wall of Ferocrete, I guess. Good when you want to extract someone, right? Good for unfair. For the rest of the difficulties, you don't need to worry about it and you don't need it. And the last talent would be Center of Attention. For each enemy that considers Vanguard a priority target, and they're gonna consider Vanguard a priority target, the Vanguard armor is increased by 5%. Absolutely great. Now I told you what are the great talents and what are the perfect talents out of the recommended, okay? And I told you how you can play Vanguard in a different ways depending on what skills you're gonna take. A must is a defensive stance, bulwark, disposal depends out of the team, force distraction is a must in order what you should take, defensive, bulwark, forced, and then Ferocrete, and then you combine them with the talents I told you that are good. Now it's your decision on in what order you're gonna do it. I'm here to explain you how to play. I'm not here to tell you that you need to play that specific build. Alright? You're here to learn what every talent, spell, active, passive does in a game. The last remaining thing for the Vanguard would be Ultimate Upgrade, Ulti-Spell Upgrade, or better to say Unyielding Guard Upgrade. Let's see which one is the best. Until the end of the next turn, Vanguard cannot die. Until the start of the next turn, all damage suffered by the Vanguard is reduced by his toughness. Absolutely great. Great upgrade for the ulti. Until the start of the Vanguard's next turn, each attack made by the Vanguard makes them a priority target for the enemy hit by the attack. Great, okay, you got 2 upgrades, as you can see, and these 2 merge extremely well together. The third one, until the end of combat, all allies in a 3-cell radius around the Vanguard suffer Vanguard's toughness bonus divided by 2 less damage for Wall of Rock Crit, okay, and then upgrade it through a talent. You can profit if you opt in for that build. That's more like a supportive Vanguard that's gonna defend the allies instead of going in on enemies. I like playing Vanguard by going in, okay, all in, and taunting and using this too. If you're gonna stay behind and keep your allies safe, your squishes safe, then you're gonna use the third upgrade on this ult. And that's why I also say that Daring Breach is better than Unyielding Guard, because I like going all in. Okay. And the fourth one, until the end of combat, the Vanguard gains Fellowship Momentum for each attack that hits them. You can use ulti more often. When you gain momentum, you can use ulti more often, so good upgrade if you wanna go in, taunt, use Unyielding Guard, and then you stack up momentum, and then you use ulti again, and so on. I would still recommend the first 2, no matter what, and no matter the build. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I thank to all of my patrons and all of the members on my YouTube channel. As always, thank you all for your support, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Are you ready for Warhammer 40k trainer? Because I am. The Emperor protects.